23andMe, the company that brought home DNA testing to the mass market, is laying off more than 200 employees in a bid to try and stay financially afloat. Ongoing clinical trials are being shut down, including its cancer drug research. The company has not been profitable for a few years, since 2021, and that's raising a big question. What happens to that bank of DNA samples if this company goes under? So joining us this morning is Carrie Bowman, professor of bioethics with the University of Toronto. Great to have you back.
Happy to be here.
First of all, 23andMe was considered revolutionary when it first launched. People were very excited about this. Its peak valuation, as a reminder, was at $6 billion. Today, it's at $113 million.
Yeah.
The real value for this company has always been the data that they've been able to willingly get in exchange for money from customers. What data, first of all, do they actually have and own? And can you get it back?
Well, you can't really. So what they have is, as you submit data, you know, they're doing DNA, they're doing genome mapping, and they hold that. Now, look, they're saying, and I believe it, that they do everything they can to protect privacy. But also, please remember, there was a data breach in October of 23, and millions of elements of data were exposed. So very, very much, they hold a lot of that data. Yes, it's protected, it's de-identified, but also remember, and it's a very complicated process, even de-identified genetic data, there are ways in some cases where it could still be traced back. And when you look at their privacy policy, it is crystal clear that in the event of a merger or acquisition, which is definitely a possibility, that data could be moved forward to other people. That wouldn't be data perhaps with your name on it. But remember, we have a lot of teeth in health care legislation and privacy in this country, the United States, all over maybe not all over the world, but many countries.
North America.
Yeah. But this is not considered. This is not
healthcare data.
No, it is, but it's not considered that in some cases. So there's really a lot of concern. I mean, I worried some years ago there could really be trouble ahead for this. I didn't think it'd be this bad.
Okay, well, let's talk about how bad it is. First of all, what happens to all this data people have provided if the company goes under, or if there is a merger or acquisition, if they sell to stay afloat?
It would move on. Now, there is a process where you can ask to have data deleted. But what's happened is if some of that data is already in certain labs have protocols where they're not allowed deleting data for a couple of years. So it's not completely clear. And there's a lot of people now trying to get data deleted. They're in quite a situation now.
Are we in legal territory, like hiring a lawyer to get this done?
Well, it's not yet, because it's not clear yet whether they're going to be able to delete it on their own or not. And, you know, one of the reasons I think they ran into and I'm speculating, but one of the reasons they ran into so much trouble is people were very concerned about vulnerability. Like a lot of this, remember it was Christmas and birthday presents. Like, oh yeah, I got this. And then you feel obliged that you've got to do it because you've got to get back to them and say, I did this and I found a cousin in, somewhere or other. So people felt obliged. But over periods of time, people have begun to realize the vulnerability. And for the many people in this world, which is most people that have children, you've got to consider that as well.
And why do you have to consider your children?
Well, because they've got similar, genetic data to you, and all these things can be linked together. So there's a lot to worry about.
We've talked about the financial concerns. We've talked about the privacy concerns. What about the ethical concerns around this?
Well, the way I see it ethically, true and informed consent was never really there. The fact that they could hold this data, the fact that they could sell this data, the fact that, it was never entirely safe because they've had a breach was never really there. And if we roll it back a couple of decades, there was a belief that, because there's the ancestry side and the health side, that on the health side, this would be tremendously useful data. Not really. For a few people, it has been. There's no question. But generally, genetics is very complicated, and most disorders that people have are not single gene mutations to begin with, so they're very hard to identify. So it really didn't, and a family doctor, and most of us can look at our own family history and figure out what's going on in our family histories anyway. So it hasn't been that useful from a medical point of view.
Well, it is fascinating and concerning for people who have, exchanged their DNA.
And, this story's not over. I mean, they're really in a lot of trouble, and we'll see in the next few weeks where it goes.
We'll be talking again. Carrie Bowman, professor of bioethics at the University of Toronto. Always great to have you in.
Happy to be
Always
here.
troubling and fascinating conversations. If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.